Hey guys, Corey with Outdoor 76. Today we're here with Drew. Drew works at our Franklin location. He is a specialist in bow drilling. Look at him, he's already blushing. So we're going to be going over the different components for bow drilling. This is going to be the first of a 3-part series that we're actually going to be doing. So today we're looking at the components. The next part we're actually going to be looking at being able to gather those components in the wilderness, how to prep them, and then the third part we're actually going to be doing an actual bow drilling exercise. We're going to create some fire. So we're excited about that. So let's just go through some pretty basic questions on what are the components, what are the materials, what type of preparation do you need to do, and I don't know, anything else we think of.
Okay. Yeah.
So start with components.
Okay. So real simple, let's just start with our bow. Mine is a sourwood bow. It's a sapling that I cut down and only use 10%. But it is a nice and straight material that is very smooth and doesn't have anything that's going to interfere with my spindle sliding back and forth against my bow.
So you've got this extra piece here. Mm-hmm. Is this like an example of something kind of in the raw? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So and I would imagine that could be an issue. These little pieces,
especially if you wanted to use that for a bow.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This is actually kind of as a spindle in the raw. You can make a spindle out of here and here. You could get one out of this section here. But it also is a very good example of if you want to make a bow and you have nubs and things that are on it, you would want to shave this stuff off.
Really smooth.
Yep.
As close to the same level plane-wise.
To get as much efficiency as possible.
Gotcha. Cool.
So next, we're going to talk about our spindle. The spindle is what's actually going to be driven in the bow to create the friction and get the powder that's created to eventually create your ember.
So one thing though that we didn't hit on with the actual bow, materials for the string.
Yes. Okay. So sorry. Let's step back. So materials for the string. Ideally, you're going to have something like 550 or paracord. If you don't have that, begin to get creative on what resources you do have available to create your cordage. You can use boot lacing. I've even seen people cut fabric out of their shirts or some extra piece of cloth that they had and tied and were able to create the cordage out of that. And then if you want to get really wild, you can take things like locust or you can take poplar and take the inner barks and create your own cordage.
So that sounds like the extra advanced course,
that is tough beyond tough because it's going to break or you're going to fail a lot, and so it's going to take a lot of practice, and that's a whole nother series of videos. And so
and probably a couple of malt beverages as well. Right? All right, cool. So moving on, we've got the spindle.
Yep.
We've got the bow. What else are we looking at?
So next, you're going to get your base, which is your fireboard. The fireboard is what's going to take the spindle and they're going to marry together.
Gotcha.
You're going to get the spinning and the friction is going to come from this to then ultimately create a powder that falls out into this trench to then ideally ignite and get your fire.
Gotcha. So on top of the spindle, we're looking at, you've got some different options here for rocks, and we'll give you guys a close-up of this stuff. But we've got one, this looks like it's had some type of hole that's been man-made, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And then it looks like we've got maybe another rock here that looks natural, something that you would find.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it's had any manipulation to the rock itself. So tell us a little bit of, did you find this rock or did you make this rock? Like the one that you were using for the top rock there.
So the one that looked like it was manipulated a little bit, I found and then drilled a hole into it.
Gotcha. So that one was something that you prepped, anticipating using.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Ways that you can prep it is you can take a piece of quartz and you can actually drill it out using a harder stone onto a softer stone and making a hole. I've made many like that. This one happens to be done in a lot quicker fashion with a mason bit and a drill. You get a nice hole out of that because knowing you're going to be needing that top rock, you're going to carry it with you. The other one is naturally found. Actually, a buddy of mine found me that one, and it already has an indentation to receive the spindle.
And if you look at it, honestly, I mean, it's
perfect.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's like nature couldn't provide a more incredible tool, it looks like.
Exactly.
So.
And so that is what's going to apply the force down onto the spindle, because the spindle is going to get very hot, and it just protects your hand from all that heat.
Cool.
So I'm gonna step back just a little bit. So we've got our quartz to make the top rock. We've got a top rock to push down onto the spindle. We've got the fireboard to receive the spindle, and I just want to touch base on some of the materials you can use for the spindle and top rock.
Sure.
Which here we've got a white pine. I use white pine a lot, especially in my classes, because it's very readily available. It's also very, very easy to identify and teach people who may not be very familiar with plants and being out in the wilderness. It's very easy to begin to learn to identify. And so marrying those two together, it's also pretty simple materials to bow drill with.
Right.
There's a lot of different ones that you can use. You can use yucca. I've seen sourwood as well. And mixing and matching can also be done. It just kind of depends. It may be a little bit harder with some and easier with others.
Sure.
Practice is key.
Awesome. So once we get our fireboard, and we're actually creating some friction there, and we're getting some of the powder coming off. What do we do? I see that we've got this piece of cardboard here. How are we using this, and what is that called?
Okay, so this is what would be known as a catch, or an ember catch. You're going to be placing the fireboard onto it to get the punk that's going to fall out onto this catch, and then it's going to build up into the trench and going to ignite.
Gotcha. I would imagine not everybody's going to have a piece of cardboard.
Correct.
Right?
Especially if you're out and about, you get lost, or you're in a survival scenario, you're probably not going to be carrying a pack of cardboard with you.
Yep.
With that, though, a lot of people wear hats. You can use the brim of your hat. I've used the inner bark before, or just taking a piece of bark.
Right.
I've even used a flat, big enough stone before to make your ember catch. The big thing is just having something that's going to be dry so that it does not transfer moisture into your punk and ember to douse it out.
Awesome. And I think that it's probably extremely important to not only just talk about, but to actually realize that maybe you don't have all of these components in the exact form, but being able to kind of think outside the box is extremely important, because it's not going to be 100% always this way. You're going to have to kind of be able to move around and shift focus, as maybe one item looks like it's going to work great. You're looking for another item.
You're just going to have to make do with.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's for my top rock before. I've used a bowl before. I've taken an indentation on the back of my handle of my knife before. Used that one. And something that I like to say is the limit of your success is the limit of your imagination. Is trying to think outside of the box. How can I manipulate this resource that I have to work and do what I need it to do?
You know that I'm going to make a shirt that says that. The limit of your success is the limit of your imagination. That sounds like a perfect shirt.
Right.
Awesome. Cool. So once we get the fireboard, we've got we're catching our punk. What do we have here? I mean, this looks like I could dig through it and maybe find it like 4 little birds hanging out in there, or like this huge rat that's going to pop out any minute. So
it's exactly it's either birds nesting. I like to call it rats nesting. There's a lot of people correct me on. They're like, hey, it's called bird nesting.
I'm guessing if Rob was here, he'd be like, that's your beard. Like,
I think we have a shirt that looks like that. Shows guy's beard with birds coming out of it. So this is actually the inner bark of a poplar. And what you're going to do with this is you're just going to process it down to get it very fine and hairy, fibrous-like. Because what that's going to do is getting it very soft and smaller, stringy particles is going to eventually, you put your ember into it once you've gotten that, and it's going to be easier to ignite rather than having bigger, woodier, harder substances to try and ignite that way.
So the smaller the fiber, the easier it is to
the
make a
more
fire.
broken down and processed, it's a bit easier.
Yeah. So we've got, we'll show also a close-up of this, but we have some really dense fiber still, like clearly there's some bark. And then we have some fiber that literally look like tiny little hairs that just have fallen off of this, which is just constantly working that fiber,
pulling it apart.
Right. Yep.
And just working it, and then you wrap it back in and pull it apart more, and just keep working it. The thing is, while you're working that, a very important piece is falling out of it. And that's where your catch is going to come into play again. You've got a very fine, powdery substance that's going to be falling out of this that if you can catch it and collect it, can be put back into your nesting.
Interesting.
Especially when you've got it processed and you have your home ready for your ember. Put that in, put the ember on top of it, and it helps it ignite a lot better.
Very cool. So we'll show you guys close-ups of that. So once again, this is the first of 3 different videos that we're going to be doing. The next video will actually be out in the wilderness. We're going to collect and yes, it's going to be paid, right? We're going to talk to management about this. The next part will be collecting each of the components, actually prepping those for use, and then in the 3rd video, we's going to make some fire. And I got to tell you, growing up, man, there was nothing more like empowering the building of fire out in the wilderness. But I can tell you that all my fire building, I have never done anything like this. So I'm excited because I feel like I feel like a kid again. Like I'm going to be learning something new. And on top of that, I think it's really cool to have that knowledge and just, you know, a worst case scenario if you ever had to use it. Having somebody like Drew that has taught this course a number of times to be able to get some one-on-one, it's going to be really cool. And then hopefully I don't screw things up too bad, and I can actually teach my son, pass the understanding and knowledge of bow drilling onto him. So we hope that you guys will tune in to the next videos that we do. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, or you can send us an email to info@outdoor76.com. Appreciate Drew taking some time to come in, do the video with us, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will talk to you guys soon. See you guys.
See you.